All right, all right, all right. Looks like we are officially live, back in action. All right, let's see here. Check on the YouTube 1 second. Yep. All right, we in. We live. Let's go. So welcome y'all back to the show here. Team Osiris Related, back in action. Uh, Back after the holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy post holidays to everyone. Thank you guys for tuning back in. When you get a chance to tune back in. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful holidays. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody who celebrates that. And for those of y'all that don't, fuck y'all. No. No. I mean, it's all love. It's all love, whether you celebrate it or not. But
hilarious.
Yeah, we back. We ready to start discussing some things. Me and Maurice, had some conversations, and we ready to talk about Black men's mental health. It's something we actually wanted to talk about Black men's mental health for quite some time. So, now that we have, the opportunity to do so, we're back at it. So we're definitely going to be discussing that today, as well as a few other topics we have in mind. Give me a second. Just going to share the show here so everybody knows we're live. All right, Maurice is back. Give me a moment here. Just going to share the show. Make sure everybody know we're live. Let's see here.
I'm back. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's them dollar store headphones, man.
Nah, I don't think it had nothing to do with the headphones. I know for a fact it had something to do with me clicking back on the app after I clicked out of it and started doing something else. So I don't know. I think I clicked some prompt that I shouldn't have clicked and it kicked me out.
Yeah, I think so. So you might want to try to stay in the zone, or you need to.
Nah, I think it was that prompt that said, "Hey, this is me in live stream. Do you wanna continue?" And I accidentally hit the no, I don't.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so remove me. Makes sense. So yeah, I was letting people know. We've been talking behind the scenes about Black men's mental health. We wanted to kind of discuss some things as far as our thoughts about Black men's mental health, and how we kind of wanted to just bring some awareness to some things. Now that we're back from the holidays, it's post holidays. How you feeling, man? How was your holiday time?
Well,
How was your close to 2022 and your
well, first
welcome to
and
2023?
foremost, I would like to say, hey everybody, appreciate you for subscribing, liking, and being viewers of the platform. We appreciate y'all. I hope everybody had a happy and safe holidays if you celebrate that type of thing, because I know some people don't, whether you do or you don't, at least you get that camaraderie of being with your family. So hopefully that was a good positive experience for everybody out there. As far as me, I had a decent holidays. I didn't do anything for either one of them. Being as I'm getting old and I'm 36 at this moment, I struggled to stay up for New Year's. I'll be honest about that. I almost didn't make it to midnight. I'll be honest with everybody. I almost didn't make it. I promise you, at 10:30, that biological clock started kicking in. I'm like, yep, all right, it's time to go to bed. But I did make it. I bought in the new year with my youngest kid, so that was a you know a good experience. It was fun, you know.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
in the same breath, for me personally, some things of been transpiring in my personal life. I mean, I'm good, but at the same time, life is life, and you got to deal with things, which kind of segues into what the show is about. Black men and our mental health, and we'll get into that, here just in a hot second. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, honestly, all things considered, I'm good, bro. I'm good, bro, and I just moving into a new year and having this positive energy that I got right now, I just hope that everybody who's listening to this or who will listen to this down the road, they're also filled with positive vibes, and may their future, not just 2023, but just future in general, yield them the best results going forward.
I agree. I agree. I second that. I definitely second that. Yeah. 2022. The holidays and the close of it wasn't that bad. When you look at the whole grand scheme of things and look at the whole outlook, as long as you have people that you love with you, that in your corner, and you're able to keep those people in your life, engage with them consistently. I think that really helps you kind of almost get through anything. So having that in your corner, you could have a rough year, rough day, rough month, but it's necessary to help you through our life. And I think especially with this year moving forward, and also like you said in the future, yeah, I definitely hope everyone has a successful future, successful life. I hope that you get the people around you that benefit you, that are necessary for your growth and development, but also that you actually have some wins this year, have some wins, period. It's for a lot of people, not having good times, since this whole COVID situation, landed and came and pretty much jacked up all of our lives. It's been kind of meh, if you will, the energy. So um, it's time to get back to us. Time to get back to enjoying our lives. Now that that's kind of somewhat subdued. Not saying it's completely over. Some people are still catching remnants of it, but it's time to start getting back to living and enjoying life. Especially now, while eggs are at $8. It's time to start getting back to enjoying life. So definitely, make the most out of it. Appreciate the people that you love and keep it on it. Um, so let's get right into this topic. Um, and I was kind of sharing with you, and I've also shared with a few people my thoughts on this topic. But what about Black men's mental health is so special and significant that it needs to be addressed separately from mental health from other men or mental health from women? What's so significant, in your opinion, Maurice, about Black men's mental health that it needs to be kind of addressed separately in its own segment?
Honestly, I feel like this is something that is so underwhelming and overlooked, in particular in our community. You know, depending on your age bracket and how you grew up, me personally, in my mid to late 30s, I grew up with a older school parent who was born in the mid 50s. Well, one of them, was born in the mid 50s and from the South. So my father, his philosophy is, he's not into therapy or any sort of a thing or any mental health type of thing. We're talking about hard nose, hard working, just get out there and get it, no excuses type of people. But um this is how we grew up. This is what was the norm for us. But as it's become more apparent, in 2022, 2023, we can't continue to go on with that particular philosophy. Um, we have to start taking care of ourselves, not only mentally, but physically also. But, mentally, it's a very, very big thing that we got to start taking seriously, because you can look at the state of you know, of the inner city Black community for the most part. This makes up the majority of the population of African Americans. So you can see how it's having an effect on us, and how if we don't hurry up and start doing something different and start changing some things and start understanding what's going on, we are putting ourselves in so much of a bind, and it's only getting worse and worse. So at this point, I feel like personally, this is one of the best things we can do is start working on our mental health. Let's start getting out of the stigma of, there's something wrong with therapy, or we can't do it, or this is only just a white people thing. There's a reason therapists exist. There's a reason why these people go get 8+ years of schooling for this type of thing. Um, this helps us. And the fact that we're having this conversation is going to help us with, what I'm saying? I'm not a licensed therapist. I know you aren't a licensed therapist, but
Right.
just getting the conversation started and just understanding what's going on and making mental health a priority, as it has been a trend lately, because we're not any trendsetters in this particular realm, but this is just to piggyback and drive in the fact that this needs to be something that we need to take care of in our community to change some things, because everything that African Americans, particularly Black men, have been through in this country, it's taken a toll on us mentally. And we're going to have to work on that, and we're going to have to fix that. There's no amount of just letting it fall by the wayside and it's just gonna go away. No, we got to take this thing head on, and we got to start getting this together.
Right. Yeah, I definitely second those motions. We definitely have to start taking the initiative to take back, our mental health, and not necessarily allow just our traumas and experiences, and also, our environment, control, how we operate, how we think. So I think it's definitely time to stop resisting therapy. Um, and, for someone like myself, and I was just explaining to Maurice today, I actually had, talked to my therapist today, and it was interesting. It was interesting to say the least. I went down memory lane, really went back to people that I no longer have access to, that I cared about, and yeah, it definitely brought back some tears, but it also explained a lot, specifically about me, about how I function, and it really, it kind of helps me put all the pieces back together, if you will. And it's weird at first, because you don't expect the results to happen. You don't expect anything, but you have to be open. You have to be real with yourself. You have to stop believing lies you told yourself, or the lies that you believed from others, and really start focusing on feeling comfortable with you, feeling comfortable with your feelings, feeling comfortable with your traumas that you go through, and actually understand, why things happen, and how things happen. I do think that Black men's mental health needs to be more pushed within the culture. There is some hesitancy towards it, just because a lot of times you don't think that that other person sitting across from you understands you, especially in some cases if that person is a person that is a non-black or non-colored person. That really makes it even harder. My therapist is not a black person or a colored person. My therapist is actually an older white lady. So just to be able to get to a point of opening up, it's extremely hard. Like she can't relate to some of my experiences, but the more and more we talk, the more and more I understand her, and the more and more she understands me. We start realizing that how we think and how we function aren't that far apart, regardless of regardless of the differences in skin complexion and skin color and age difference. We really aren't that far apart. And so, I think I like to say, I think the first step to for black men to start accepting mental health and therapy is to start making mental health universal. Mental health used to be something that I saw before I've actually gone through it as something that was only for people that uh, could, afford to go to therapy. These would be people that, were on drugs the previous night, completely partied out, and then go to therapy and, try to get themselves back together again. But that's something that needs to be kind of dispelled. Mental therapy is for everyone. Doesn't matter, your race, your color, your creed, your sex. It's for everyone, and we have to start making that universal so that everyone can access it. But it's specifically for Black men. We need to make sure that psychologists are addressing issues that Black men have to deal with. So we need to have a treatment that is culturally responsive. We need to make sure that issues that we go through are understood. Issues like race, issues like community issues that may exist within their environment. And we see some form of therapy in other places that have a positive benefit to Black men, especially when you talk about the local barbershop environment. That's a place that you wouldn't think is therapeutic. You wouldn't think is help promotes good mental stimulation and mental therapy for Black men, but that's a safe environment. It's an environment for Black men. They communicate, and it allows them to form a bond, and they begin to start talking about the day-to-day things, the life and things that they experience. It may start off as sports, and then they may end up talking about themselves or their job or their girl or the kids that they may raise, and that's evidence that that barbershop environment needs to be expanded, but under the banner of men's mental health to where it's relatable. But I think and you could definitely add your opinion on this. I think that when you talk about Black men's mental health, the biggest thing that needs to be addressed is, in my opinion, racial trauma and its effects. I think when you go to therapy, that's not something that is usually discussed, but it's something that's very real that Black men and other colored people go through. But for Black men, we're only talking about Black men here. That's something that is not addressed. Your therapist may discuss you, your life, your thoughts, your actions, your goals and aspirations, and the people that are connected to you. But your therapist will rarely, if ever, discuss how life is for you when you've gone through racial trauma. And it's necessary that we start unpacking that. What are your thoughts about that? I think you muted. You unmuted and muted back.
Oh, okay, there we go. I was gonna say, yeah, I definitely feel you 100% on that. I think that's one thing, but I think the biggest pink elephant in the room for us is not only that, but also just the fact that it's such a taboo thing in the Black community to seek and talk about therapy just in general. I think
Yeah,
that's just the biggest one in general. Like you said, you brought up a valid point. There are things that we do that are very therapeutic for us. Like for me, and yeah, Black man, the barbershop, man, that's an excellent place for us to fellowship and get our thoughts off and talk about all these types of different things, man. Even something so simple as a mechanic shop, just sitting around with the
yeah,
guys and you realize something real major when you're around groups of men. We not only do we have more in common than we think, but us being amongst each other and having these conversations amongst each other, we have this camaraderie and this feeling that happens when you're in those social environments that is unmatched anywhere else. And those types of experiences, if we could somehow, understand or find a way for us to take that experience and say, hey, what's wrong with you also getting this same experience from a one-on-one therapy session from a licensed trained professional?
mm,
You Yeah,
mm.
like what what I'm saying, what's wrong with you taking that experience you have at the barbershop and you have that feeling, that you make sure you got to get your hair cut at this one particular barbershop or this one particular barber that you go to every week or two. You know, what if we can find a way to hone in and make our demographic understand that, hey, not only can you have this feeling in these particular social environments, but you can also have this particular feeling and even a deeper feeling and understanding with somebody who can even get more out of you in this particular social setting where it's one on one. So I
Right.
think that's one of the things that we should work on, or getting people to understand, because this is so important. Me personally, haven't found a therapist. I commend you for having one. I'm actively looking for one, and I want that connection. So, the fact that you already have that step ahead, I commend you on that, because it's a lot of people that haven't even made that step.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
But yeah, you like I said, you brought up some good valid points, man. You have these social settings where, think about it, as a Black man, you feel the most comfortable when you with your boys. You don't think about, unless you're having a conversation about these things, you're not really concerned about dealing with the outside world and all of the harshness and things that we got to deal with. You're amongst the guys, you having a good time, you're laughing. You may have certain periods where you're discussing something uncomfortable, but you're in good company. So even those uncomfortable situations are not um so taboo to the point where you feel like it's something that you can't mention. You know, that feeling, man, that's definitely a feeling for the ages. And if we can make sure we get people to understand that particular feeling, and especially getting some help from somebody who's licensed and trained, that would be super dope. Super dope.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I mean, and for those who, who have been at the barbershop for so long, and like I know some people who just go at the barbershop and sit. They don't cut, they don't get nothing, no haircut. They have a certain hairstyle that they don't want trimmed or cut, and they just go at the barbershop to sit and just talk and just really connect and bond with the fellas there. And you know, next time, you go to the barbershop, those that do, make sure you tip your barber a little bit more, because that experience, while originally it's not intended for mental health and also expanding, uh, topics where you maybe even find some mentorship or some guidance with life and life decisions. It's almost like a side effect. It's a side effect of having a environment that is nurturing because someone's taking care of your hair, your image. They want to make sure you look nice and make sure all your lines is tight and make sure that you don't just you walk out looking better than when you came in. But also mentally, being able to connect with the fellas there and you know, even if it's just over a game, it's just that bond and being able to talk about almost anything. It's good for us. It's good for you to have people that you can talk to that you can talk about life with. Whether it's things you're going through, questions you may have, and we just need that and bottle that and sell that under the prescription of a therapist, basically. You know, I think that's something that needs to be understood. Therapists need to be able to cater directly to who they talk to and who they are dealing with, and that's something that I hope I can actually begin to discuss with my therapist is the racial trauma. Uh, that's something that I'm pretty confident that she hasn't experienced. But being able to discuss that with her is definitely going to open up some doors, and maybe it may help her understand me better. And I hope that one day, Maurice, you get a chance to actually get your therapist. I would recommend one, but I think even the journey of finding one and vetting one is crucial and it's important to you because at first, my therapist was she was not professional at first. I'll say that. Just kind of hard to get. But once we got started and she apologized for how things started, we've been consistent. And, I probably, you know, would have given up on her after that first, bad impression, but I'm glad I didn't. Even though, like I said, she's an old white lady and I'm a 30-year-old black man and we like don't have anything in common regarding our experiences within our environment. She's helping me become a better version of me, helping me actually connect with the child within, which is critical to mental development. And so it's important. It's definitely very important. And I hope you find success with getting your therapist. I want to say shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for coming through and supporting us, showing us love. Uh, Peace to Planet Free Spirit, as always. And then, hey, Shay Love, welcome. Thanks for coming to the platform, showing some love. Nice to have you here. And make sure you subscribe, click that subscribe button, hit the like button, and, join us. Maurice, any other topics that pertain to just Black men's mental health that you think need to be addressed? Just coming from a Black man who, a lot of times, like I know, we actually don't, get our mental needs taken care of. A lot of times we kind of carry shit that we really shouldn't carry. It's unhealthy, but because we're men and because society doesn't necessarily have a lane for us to comfortably express ourselves without it being too weird, but we kind of carry those things on. What are your thoughts about maybe having a route to express ourselves, to express what we're going through, maybe even through therapy? What are your thoughts about that?
I'll be honest, man. I think sometimes we get in our own way, and
Absolutely.
part of it is like not consciously our fault. Subconsciously, yes, but consciously not our fault because you were taught certain behaviors um, and you were taught to carry yourself a certain way. And
Right.
therapy is one of those things where we weren't taught to do that. You know, that's not something we look to. That's not something that's not a topic that came up very often. So we have to break this barrier of looking at therapy as that's just some taboo type of thing. We need to get to a point where we're embracing it, because whether we know it or not, this is also instrumental to helping us mentally going forward as a group. Because what happens is, let's just say this particular generation we're in, we take the initiative and we start taking our
Mhm.
mental health serious. We start getting into our emotions. And when I say getting into our emotions, I don't mean walking around crying. That's not what I'm saying. I
Right. Right.
mean understanding that you as a male, even though you're a male and you got to put on this hard shell, you got feelings too, and you have to navigate this life understanding that you have feelings too, and things bother you and things harm you and things hurt you. So if we can get to a place where we're okay with that and we're able to navigate that understanding, I
Mhm.
think that we can begin to start breaking down those generational curses that plague us.
Mm.
Because I feel like the worst thing you can do as a father, like I'm a father of a 2-year old and a 12-year-old. Knowing what I know now, my father was my father, not was, he is. My father is a great father. He's a great man. But of course, there was room for improvement. So my interaction with my son slightly different from his interaction with me and my siblings.
Right. Right.
Personally, I won't put my son in a position where I'm just going to tell him to suck it up and he got to deal with XYZ. Hey, let's unpack this. Let's find out why you feeling the way you feel.
Mm.
Then let's address XYZ so we can make sure your experience going forward is better.
Mm. Mm. I like that. I like that. I think that's something that if you've been paying attention, there is a shift in parenting that's going on, and we can actually save this for another day. There is a shift in parenting that's going on where parents are starting to be more perceptive of their child's emotions and not actually just sliding it under the rug as, oh, they're hungry, or oh, they're just tired, they need to go to bed, or oh, they're acting out, but actually having discussions with their children and really, like you said, unpack what's the reason behind the emotion, what's the reason behind the expression, and really get to the root of why they're acting out the way they are, or why they're responding the way that they're responding. And studies have shown, like, when you do that, you actually can a lot of times get to the root of what the actual cause is. The root of the cause may not even be what you thought it was. It may be something completely irrelevant, and the child doesn't know it's irrelevant until you break it down and you realize, oh, okay, they're upset about something that they can't control, but deep down, they know should know I got their back, and if they need anything, they can come to me and tell me and ask me, and that really fixes a lot of problems between parents and children, especially with uh, parenting children, especially younger children. I'm seeing
Yeah, for
that
sure.
shift take place, and especially for boys, and we'll talk about boys in a minute. For boys, I think that's necessary because, like you said, around that age of 5, 6, you know, we teach boys from, the way I was raised, man up or boy up, if you will, stop crying, stop whining, type of thing. And they learn that early. And so they hear that enough that that becomes a norm. They're not able to express themselves when they become a teen. And that's when you have this rebellious stage. Because now this
Yep.
teen
They
is
become
in your
rebellious teens who don't know how to communicate.
It, it,
Then they
no,
become
no,
then they
hold on,
become problematic adults who don't know
hold on.
how to
No,
communicate.
no, they know how to communicate. They communicate with their friends at school, not in the home. There's a difference. And that's why, you notice your team is on the phone all day and night talking to their friend. But then when you ask them how their day was, you get dead silence. That's proof that that's something that, that bond, you probably kind of messed up trying to tell that child to thug it out and be hard and be manly. Like, not saying that they're not supposed to, be, masculine when it's supposed to be masculine, but it's a child. That isn't their time yet. So yeah, I think that's something. Like I said, we'll discuss that another time. I do have something I do want to say on black male boys as far as mentally maturing that we talked about. But one more thing I do want to address regarding black men's mental health is one of the biggest things that as black men we're not getting any help with, and it's kind of alarming, is our feelings of anxiety or depression. There isn't,
Mhm.
a lot of times any services that are available for black men to take for depression or anxiety. Um, with these feelings, if black men, let's say, were to start seeking help, for their anxiety, for their depression, many of us, and you could definitely vouch in, many of us would actually prefer to have a person to talk to that's of the same race, even sometimes preferably same sex, just because we want to make sure somebody understands us. And it's tough finding black psychologists. That's something I'm learning. It's tough finding black psychologists because they only make up like less than 10% of all the psychologists within the field. So 9 times out of 10, you may get another white woman like I did because it isn't there, And so it's kind of hard at first to kind of crack that shell and really open up to know that person because you don't feel like that person can relate to you. You don't feel like that person understands what it's like to be a black man functioning in America in modern times, having to deal with the environment and society that you live in, the pressures that you have to go through. That's something that actually I don't discuss much with my therapist because I doubt she understands. You see what I'm saying? What are your thoughts about
Mhm.
that?
Well, I'll do you one better. What if the reason that it's hard to find a black therapist is because also with African Americans not, going that road or going down a therapy road often, what if we have such a view that we don't feel like, hey, I want to go to school for 4 to 8 years for this because this is not something that's major in my community. So maybe that can also account for the lack of black therapists that we have. So that's what I'm saying. Just having this conversation can help because maybe you can inspire some young man or young woman to say, hey, obviously there there's a need for this in my community. So I think I want to pursue this as a potential career or an outlet to help my people. Because let's be real here. When you're talking about helping the black community as a whole, everybody can't be a soldier. Everybody can't get out there and walk the picket lines, or everybody can't get out there and protest. And there are different roles that people play within the black liberation struggle and helping the group as a whole. And
Right.
we're going to need some people that need to specialize in mental health.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just one facet. We're going to need that. So just having this conversation, maybe it'll spark a young person's mind and say, hey, I want to change my major into psychology. I want to go this route. I see that
Mm,
there's a need for this in my community. And if we can just touch one or two, that within itself can help how many people? We don't even know how many people that can help because this is
right.
something that's so needed.
Right.
So, that's my alternative take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely appreciate that. I think we do need more black people, more black psychologists, more black therapists, just so that way we can start breaking down these barriers and actually start, if we want more black men in therapy, we have to start having black men that actually are taking the profession seriously. We have to have more black male psychologists that are ready to take on, the necessary task in hand, and also be not just be willing to, go through the education and be the professional, but also be willing to just listen, because that's another thing. It's just you got to be willing to listen to, that person and allow people to open up. And you know getting them to open up is the hardest part, but once they open up and if they feel comfortable, you begin to really start doing some healing, really start doing some work. um but yeah, I think when it comes to black men's mental health, our particular mental health is a little bit more complex than, the type of mental health that is often diagnosed, just because things like structural racism, things like our history within this country, um, things like possibly coming across bias, by, our medical providers, or things
Basically, in a
like.
nutshell, just transgenerational trauma of existing in this
Exactly.
country in this time and understanding your position.
Exactly. But, even like high poverty rates, or even the price of a therapist to begin with, like compared to white people, for instance, uh, blacks are less likely to actually, those who actually want to go to therapy are less likely to, if they don't have the funds to do so, or their insurance provider cannot provide them with options. Like, it's going to be extremely hard for them to do it, even if they want to. Now, getting them to want to is only half the problem. It's only half the step. And I'll be honest with you, I know some black men who would rather just go in the emergency room, or primary care for mental health. Go get a pamphlet or something. And that's not how we treat that. That's not how we get the appropriate service for what we need. And we just gotta fix that.
Yeah, for sure. Without question.
Yeah. Um no, definitely appreciate you guys in the chat. Definitely feel free if you guys have any questions, any commentary, feel free to put it out there about the topic. I know the two that are in the chat, the Planet Free Spirit and Shay Love are both women, black women. But if you guys have any comments or questions, definitely feel free to let us know there in the chat. Shay Love said therapy is great for us all. I wish society didn't have so much naysay and downplaying of it. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the society we live in kind of downplays therapy? And if they do,
Uh,
why?
I wouldn't say I, I wouldn't say society in general as a whole. On the strength of, I'm gonna be honest with myself, and I gotta be honest with everybody. Me personally, I don't interact with too many white people in my personal life. Uh, I mean, don't get me wrong, I live in a mixed neighborhood, but I don't too much. you know, I'm
Right.
not too much like I'm not at HOA meetings or kicking it with my neighbors or nothing like that. So I don't um most of my social experiences throughout my entire life are going to be from people that are like me, other
Right.
African Americans, my family, most pretty much my friends. The only time where I do interact with probably other races is more so at work. That's just the nature of working and being out there doing whatever it is you do. But for the most part, in a social setting, most of my experiences are with African Americans. So I can't, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of studying, I've looked at a lot of scientific journals and studies, but I'm taking into my personal accounts here because I feel like this is going to relate to everyone that we're trying to reach more than speaking on the analytics or looking at the journals. And what I'll say is this: I can't speak from a societal standpoint of it being shunned per se, but I can say from within the African American community, this is something that is very taboo. You're amongst family at a social gathering, whether it be for a holiday or maybe somebody just had a random barbecue. You will hear the wildest conversations about all types of things. I mean, we're talking crazy about sex. We're talking crazy about
Mm-hmm.
doing wild things in the past, the future, what ifs. But one thing that you almost will never, and I'm going to say not even almost, but I can speak for me personally, is what you never hear is talking about therapy and how to deal with a trauma that we've accrued as an ethnic group. So I won't say society in general, but I just feel like it's such an underrated or under talked about topic in our community in general, where we don't even mention it. And I feel
Mm.
like it's a resource that we can tap into and actually use to start to break down some of those generational curses or generational traumas that we deal with. And I think that makes a better community when we start dealing with those traumas and start going to get help for certain things, because you got to be honest with yourself. You know, living life, going through it day by day, you'll start to realize things about yourself, and you don't quite understand how to diagnose or help yourself to figure out certain things. Maybe you're a type of person who wants a successful relationship and you want to get married, but you finding yourself feeling like, hey, I just can't seem to get this thing right. What has happened to me to the point where I can't figure this out? You're gonna have
Right.
to go get some help, dog. Because if you get some help, maybe you can start to get some diagnosis and understand, hey, I'm doing XYZ. Maybe I need to stop doing XYZ so I can attract people who don't necessarily do this particular thing or put me in this particular situation to continue to go down this path of not being able to hold a successful relationship.
Right. Right.
It's little things like that you got to think about. So, from a societal standpoint, I can't speak on that. But from African American and the African American community, yeah, obviously it's looked down upon and it's something that's not talked about. And I think, like I said, just this one conversation and going forward, you go into family gatherings and the conversation might take a left turn. Maybe you can start introducing the thought of, hey, maybe you should go get some help.
Right.
Make this
Right.
thing stick, make it something that we start looking forward to doing. And one thing I wanted to say and piggyback on what you said earlier about maybe the cost and not being able to afford. Well, I'm sure there are plans within Affordable Care Act where you can get a therapist for next to nothing. Then also, some of us who have good places of employment, like I can say for me, for a fact, I'm fortunate to work with a place where I have great benefits and not only do I have great benefits, but um, we talking about I get weekly emails from different outlets and different people and programs that we have to help me make decisions, whether it's my physical health, my mental
Mm-hmm.
health,
Mm-hmm.
or just anything else in general. Just talking about something, even access to doctors, and you being able to call a doctor on the phone, even if it's not your personal care doctor, if your personal care doctor is not available. So,
Right.
um, look into those type of things, man. Look at your job, look at your benefits. We have, where I work, we got apps, we got all types of resources to reach out to therapists and mental health specialists or weight loss coaches or just, personal trainers and that nature. I mean, it's amazing what we have access to. I know that's not probably for everybody, but if you got a career, man, look into it. You never know, man. Your particular career might offer that. You might have benefits that you don't know you have.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I get the same benefits here with the company I work with, and that's what I took advantage of. I was like, oh, okay, like you're just gonna you're gonna give me that opportunity to take advantage of something that is beneficial for me, physically and mentally. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna jump head first and grab that right away. So yeah, I definitely think if you have a occupation that is definitely promoting good mental health, good work life balance, I think that you should definitely take advantage of that. Um, One thing I think that also can be shared, um, I think also that needs to be maybe provided more is, let's say, even if you don't have um, the means to purchase, you know, or have your insurance provider help you with the cost of counseling. What I would say is, and maybe you can vouch for this as well, just having an ear, someone to talk to that you can just completely let out exactly which word is bothering you, what worries you, or even what you're going through is so vitally important to your mental health. A lot of times in when you go to therapy, a lot of times you may not actually be the one, you know, listening. You may actually be the one who's actually talking. And the therapist is just sitting back listening. Sometimes they're taking notes, sometimes they're not, but they kind of take it all in. I prefer my therapist to engage with me. So she does. But um, so having the person to talk to that you can talk to, and they're not going to utilize what you talk with them about against you or expose you or hurt what your thoughts are or what your feelings are, is critical to your mental health. Having someone that you can trust, that you can do that with, is necessary. And I think that we need more of that. We need more real people in our lives that we can say, hey, I want to talk about something. I'm going through something and I want your thoughts on it. Or I just want to vent. You let me vent and not necessarily say anything, or let me vent and then engage with me. It's necessary that you have some people like that in your life to help you go through those stages, because you're not going to always be able to go through them alone, and it's always better to have somebody that you can talk to, that can kind of, even if they don't necessarily provide you useful advice, at least the whole process of getting that off your chest and getting it off your mind and not holding on to it and letting it build and fester is helpful. And I think that that's something we all need more of in our lives, especially if you cannot afford uh, to go see a therapist. If you're uncomfortable with going to see a therapist, having somebody like that, a close friend, a loved one, or even a mentor is helpful. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would just be like, by me being somebody who understands this topic a lot more, in the last few months, and really wanting to push this narrative of we going to get help. Yeah, even if you're not in a position to get a licensed therapist, I mean, you have the right to, talk to somebody in your life that you trust and be able to vent and get those feelings out, because a lot of times what we don't understand is us as black men holding in our emotions and holding in all of the traumas that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis actually does more harm than good. This is how you create those volatile attitudes. This is how you create the warped understanding of the world around you. This is how you get people wanting to pursue suicide thoughts stronger,
Mm,
things of that nature, or you have people who get to a point where they don't care and they're gonna do whatever they want to do.
mm,
So being able to have someone in your corner where you can talk to, like me, I'm an open book, man. Like, I let people know that I talk to, especially if I found out they're going through something. I give you a perfect example. I got a friend of mine I kind of went to school with. Um, he had a situation where he just lost his oldest son, who was 21 years old, to gun violence, which is another topic for another day that happens too often in our community.
yeah, yeah.
And he was, I mean, to say the least, of course, he was pretty hurt. I mean, he's only what, a couple years older than me, in his late 30s. Um, just lost your oldest child, and
Mm,
the nature of the conversation we were having, I could tell he didn't have, a lot of people to express himself to. But I extended the olive branch to the brother and I told him straight up, listen, hey, we went to school together. I know we don't talk that often, but I'm telling you right now, you got my Facebook. We keep in contact on Facebook. We went to school together. We see each other around. Look, man, you need to talk to somebody. Talk to me. Hit me up, bro. You got my number. You got my contact information. You got my inbox. Don't hesitate, bro. I don't have all the answers, and I can't tell you how it feels to lose a child. But I know for a fact that us both being black men, we've dealt with a lot of death from very close people to us. And if you just take your time, I understand you're angry and you might want revenge, but luckily he had enough understanding to be like, you know what? I want to break the cycle. I'm tired of it, and I don't even want any parts of that.
right.
And I just wanted to make sure that he understood. Look, man, you need to talk to anybody, man. Talk to me, man. I'm open. You got my social medias, you got my number, man. Give me a call, talk to me. If I don't have the answers, god damn it, I got enough resources and understanding that we can find the damn answers for you if you need to.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I respect that a lot. I think having somebody to talk to is critical to keeping you sane to some degree. Like
You damn
like you
right. I
said.
mean, you said it just right there. You said it. That's the perfect example. Just to keep you sane. You can say that. Just you don't understand sometimes having a conversation with somebody you can trust or you feel comfortable having a conversation with. Sometimes you don't even feel comfortable. You just want to get it off your chest, man. You never
Yeah,
know how much that helps you as a
yeah,
person.
yeah.
That helps a lot.
It does. It really does.
And unfortunately, sometimes that shoulder to lean on or that person to talk to might not always be the person you want it to be. Like for the most part, let's be
Eh,
real. You want to feel like, hey, I want to be able to go to my mom, my dad, my wife, or in a female's perspective, she wants to go to her husband, and have that conversation. Maybe, that person that you care about, maybe that's not the person that had a conversation with you, but as long as you have somebody that you can have that conversation with, it means a lot and it helps a lot. Just being
Yeah,
able to just vent and speak your mind, and this person is giving you that shoulder to use to just express yourself. That sometimes that means a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm even glad that you spoke on even like for people who like you never know who you could help, or prevent from committing suicide. That's a big thing. Like in the one thing that most people that end up committing suicide is that there's nobody that understands how they feel. And yes, you may not even understand how they feel, but at least if you're that ear to allow them to vent or allow them to just get off their chest how they feel or what's going on. And I think that's critical to possibly even like downright saving life, you know, and it's necessary. This is why mental therapy is necessary.
Hell yeah, when it boils down to it, sometimes let's just be real. Sometimes you don't even need a solution. Maybe you already know the solution. Maybe you just need somebody to talk to. You just
Exactly.
want somebody to hear your grievances sometimes.
That's it. Somebody to feel you, somebody to be like, okay, look, I get what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. Yes, it's tough. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's a lot to deal with, but you can push through it. You can get through it. I try my best to be that type of person as well that people can talk to. But one thing I would recommend people do is make sure you vouch, validate exactly who you're sharing that information with. Don't just necessarily share with just anybody. Make sure you know exactly who you can talk to. Not everybody is reliable like that. Not everybody has a heart like that. And you may find you be in situations where the person that you are sharing that information with isn't really to be trusted. So you got to vet people, and we got to, that's another topic I would love to talk about is just vetting people in our lives, making sure that we have the right people around us. All right. So I want to go back to something that was said, more so about like the norms that we have as Black men when we're not necessarily going through therapy. A lot of times, what you find among most of us Black men is we adopt the natural aspects of masculinity or masculine identity, such as acting hard or tough or being in control or trying to avoid any type of emotional expression. Uh, and the reasons why we do that, studies have shown, is that because of the pressures of society and because of oppression as well, that we maintain that type of mindset. Actually, more than I would say, almost 50% more than our white counterparts. And I think that goes to show that we are we do need more mental therapy, but a lot of us are resistant to it because of what we go through on a day-to-day basis and because of what we've gone through in this country. It's extremely hard. And like you said, sometimes you want to talk to a family member or you want to talk to those who go to church or your pastor, or you want to try to find that barbershop, but sometimes you're not able to find that. Sometimes that's just not there. It's not available for you. And you still need to find ways to open up and share your emotions and, discuss them. And I think that's where we have to start pushing just go to mental therapy as much as possible. And I think that's something that we have to start breaking this desire or this need to completely act tough and not necessarily discuss your emotions. We have to start making discussing your emotions in a healthy way cool. We have to start making that a societal norm. And the best way to do it is either with, like we said, someone that you actually care about, that you trust and you value, and that you can talk to them about anything, or actually doing that with a licensed mental therapist. I think when we start working on our emotion and we're able to express our emotion, I think that it helps us learn to communicate about how we feel, about our needs in relationships, and it also helps us deal with traumas that we've had. Um, I think that's when you really start seeing mental progress in a person. That's
Yeah.
something I had to discuss today with my therapist. She's like, sometimes you need to let your significant other know, hey, you know what? I actually need you to spend a little bit more time and give me a little bit more attention. And it's
Yeah, that
hard.
that I was just about to say. I was just about to say. This is
It's
where
hard.
this is where communication is key, especially for men.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we have to be able to communicate how we're feeling. Um, instead of taking a testosterone laden way out and just like pouting, throwing a fit,
Right.
raw, doing all that. You got
Right.
to be able to say, hey, what you're doing bothers me. I don't like it. And you should be able to explain yourself why.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, you are human too. You have feelings, you got emotions, and you want to be happy too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I know for a fact too often many of us bite our tongues, which is why when we at the
Hmm.
barbershops, we'll say the most outlandish off the wall shit that we want to say inside the house, but we can't say it inside the house because we either subconsciously fear the repercussions of
Yep.
what's going to happen, or that thing that women do where you're mad at them but then they're mad at you for being mad at them, so then you end up apologizing for being mad, and it's like,
Yeah.
what the just happened right now, bro? I don't even. So this is why we we go through those types of things. But yeah, like I said, we've got to be able to communicate, and not only do we need to be able to communicate, but it also helps if you're with someone who understands how to communicate back with you and
Yes.
take into account how you feel and can, understand, like, hey, okay, I understand how I made you feel. Okay, going forward, let's do XYZ so we don't end up in this place again. you
Facts.
know and
Facts.
and that's such an underrated thing, because we also find ourselves with people who you can communicate with, but they don't necessarily understand how to communicate with you, or they don't even want to meet
Woo.
you in the middle to help fix a situation, even when you could possibly be looking for a solution. Sometimes you
Woo.
just
Say
have
that
people like
again.
that. Yeah,
Say
you just
that.
sometimes it's people like that. And unfortunately, as much as it's gonna hurt you and how much you may love that person, you might need to distance yourself from them, because going forward and understanding your life, that's not going to help you.
No,
It's
not
only
at
going to
all.
continue to add more stress and strife to what you got going on continually. And it's going to compound, and it's going to continue to compound. You have to get to a space, especially when you get older. When you start getting our age, you start seeing life differently, and you start
Facts.
understanding the value of peace, and just wanting to not have to deal with confrontation, and just being able to, some of us can't speak for everybody, but just wanting to be able to communicate and have conversations where it doesn't devolve into a big argument or a big fight, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're adults. And at this point, especially in your damn mid 30s, mid to late 30s, and going forward, you should be able to communicate without it being a big thing and it being a whole fight. You should be able to acknowledge that you're doing wrong. You should be able to apologize if you are wrong. Your mate should be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree. I think that's critical to any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a family ship, a relationship with a significant other, a work relationship, friendship. I think having communication is critical and it's key. If we're talking about Black men's mental health, you're right. A lot of times we do hold it in, And sometimes it's actually easier to hold it in because we don't have to worry about being judged for what we think or what we say. And we have to start realizing that that's not healthy. We have to start realizing that because we've been so used to just holding in how we feel and holding in our thoughts about ourselves or our relationships or things, we have to start letting that go and start actually expressing those things and being comfortable with our emotions. But that also takes a person who's willing to listen, especially if it's a significant other or a family member. They have to be willing to listen and not necessarily get caught up in feelings and responding to what they hear. If your mate is willing to express to you, hey, I don't like this that you're doing, by responding with anger or frustration doesn't help the situation because one, for this person to even get to that point where they can tell you is a huge step. And so if you respond negatively, you respond with anger, you respond with frustration, as if, it's not an issue to you and you don't necessarily care about what that person thinks, they will never share anything with you again. I know that from experience. I've been there. The moment I found out I cannot share anything with someone, I cut them off completely. You don't know nothing now, period. Because now you make it such a big deal of more about you than about me, who's actually bringing the tea. You know what I'm saying? So it's critical that we have good communication with partners, but we want to make sure that they actually give you room to express yourself and not necessarily just quickly react to what you're saying, but actually take it all in and then actually have a discussion about what may bother you or what you need more of. And again, that's something I learned today. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to start doing that. When I feel a certain type of way about something, or I feel frustrated about something, or upset about something, or sad about something, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to talk to my person and be like, you know what? Look, I feel X, Y, and Z, and I'm confident in our communication that we can discuss it as adults, and we do more of that.
I'll add on to that too. Let's also this is a big one. It's gonna kind of tie into what you were saying.
Yeah,
This is for everybody. Let's also normalize not making it about you if somebody's come to you to
yes,
vent
yes.
about that situation.
Even
Let's
if it's
let's
about you.
let's make sure we understand it because we get so many of us get into this thing where oh, you're going through this. Well, look, I went through it too, and I got to kind of one up you and make mine even bigger. And it's like, yo,
Oh man.
right now, that's not what we need to do. This person has come to you and wanted to talk to you about this certain situation. At this point, just shut the fuck up and listen to them right now. And if you want to be honest with yourself, it's better for you to offer that person solutions if you've been through a similar situation, then trying to make it about you and telling them what what I'm saying, your feelings about it. No, how about you just help them with solutions if you've been through that situation before and not make the
And
situation about you.
and be careful with the solutions thing because what I'm learning now is it's better to suggest. Like, okay, can I make a suggestion? And that way you put your suggestion on the table and you give them an option to actually decide if they want to follow your suggestion or not. And it's a healthy approach versus, well, no, I experienced this and you should do this. And completely removing the ability of choice from them. And that you will bump heads with people when you do that. So I think just putting it out as a suggestion, allowing people to come to their own terms and making their own choices on whether or not they will do something is part of good communication. It's more learning how to express that. What's going on, Tris? What's going on with you, man? We having a discussion here about Black men's mental health. How you been?
Peace. What's going on, everybody? Peace to the family out there. Yeah, man. I'm just overhearing you guys, man. I just dropped in the last few minutes, and I feel what y'all saying, man, about this communication. It's big, man, and what you were saying is right on. And you know what? It takes like a certain self confidence, and then a confidence in your partner, your significant other, your spouse, whoever it might be, to have clear lines of communication without being offended or obstructing the original conversation by being offended now, and then now you're going on a tangent, into an argument, which is usually what happens out here. So yeah, it's very key, man, for people to kind of just take a step back and not be so hot-headed, you know what I'm saying, and let the other person talk, right, and get their piece out, and then you get your piece out. And while y'all was talking, one of the things that I thought about that I'll go ahead and add to this, right, is it's good to use text to get across your ideas, to your partner, and vice versa. Because when you're talking in passing, a lot of times, like, there's no timestamp on it. There's no, like, you don't remember the context,
Right.
that conversation was had in. And then so when you recall it later on, you recall it in a way that's not really how it came out originally. You know what I'm saying? And then you start to have arguments about that. So it is good to be able to say, look, let's use email, or let's use, whatever app or whatever, just get on Instant Messenger or something, get in the DM, and you're able to go back and reread things, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not have to, like, what I said was right and raise your voice and all that. Like, no, just scroll up, and I had already addressed that here, right? And you take a screenshot, show them, whatever you got to do, but it makes, like, logical sense, to do it that way. And then when people type, depending on who it is, you're going to type better. You're going to get your ideas across better because you're going to be thinking about these things backwards and forwards in your mind as you're typing them, rather than just speaking off the cuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, what I really meant was, but that's not what you said. So when you're typing, I think it comes out a little better, man. So that's one thing I would say for, people that are struggling in that area, and they feel like, man, I'm talking to a brick wall, or, I'm really trying here, the other person ain't trying, or whatever. If you can get some communication, that's text, that's visual, that we can save, we can go back and look at, it's timestamp, that does help. Or keeping diaries, or, journals, or whatever you want to call it. People might keep journals, and and that works for some people, So those are some suggestions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I like the way you put that, with the possibly texting the emailing type thing, because I never looked at it in that particular light. I will tell you how I do view texting and emailing, when it comes to some situations like that. Me personally, now hearing how you put it, yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. But how I how I would think about it before hearing your perspective on that was, that's kind of sketchy, because
Yeah.
it's hard to understand tone over texting or emailing. And that's a big thing, because a lot of times when you don't understand or able to interpret the tone of somebody's conversation, you can be taking something totally different than how they're saying it or how they're meaning it to be. So I think, it just depends. And then also, I think you probably got to mix in a little bit, because I'm sure we've all done it, and we've all been in a situation where we've received the text, and we've sent the text, and maybe the person replying or us, we didn't interpret or understand it as the person meant for it to go. So then you end up in a different conversation or a different situation than it was originally intended. So, I mean, hearing your perspective, yes, for sure. But at the same time, this is where also it helps to have, these verbal conversations, just so you can get the tone and the understanding, of how or how you want your message to be interpreted. Because all it takes is one wrong word, and
Right.
you will completely have a different conversation.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying right there too. And the only thing I could say to that is, yes, you do want verbal conversation, obviously, in the mix. But then also you got to have skills, right, at communicating. Because all the stuff we're talking about is having skills at communicating. So some people know how to make you feel what they were intending you to feel with their words. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't, and that's okay. You can mix in the verbal, where need, and then also the familiarity with the person. What words is gonna set them off. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Hey, hey,
So
hell yeah.
you have to
yeah.
observe some. You got to be polite. Like, I know that if I say it like this, we have a history, right? I can scroll up and see. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna try to word it, properly or whatever. But then also offer like, yeah, we could talk about this, obviously, too. We can talk about it personally, with our voice and stuff when we see each other later or whatever. But I just wanted to say this, or something like that. But yeah, you're right, because
Yeah,
stuff can
and
get misconstrued for sure.
I know we understand that more than anybody on the strength of,
Absolutely.
us.
Look.
We communicate with each other daily. And sometimes we do have heated discussions, and sometimes things
Mm-hmm.
can be
Yeah.
interpreted in a way
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't mean to, or it's not how
Yeah.
we intended it to go. And then we end up having a whole nother conversation, or the
Right.
conversation goes even more left than it should be. So yeah, I
And
know we all understand that for
Yep.
sure.
And the
Yep.
thing is, it ain't nobody's fault. That's just how the language is. It's built into the language
Yeah,
where you
for
have a
sure.
word that's neutral. You got neutral words, but you could take them as, right. You can have a connotation or denotation that's negative or positive, but really it's a neutral word. You know what I'm saying? So you
Mm-hmm.
gotta, okay, I need you to clarify on that. You know what I'm saying? Run that back real quick for me. And then you have to be able to, okay, yeah, let me run it back because that did kind of sound ambiguous. You know what I'm saying? So let me just let you know I was talking about the positive version of that word, not the not the negative, whatever.
Right. Right.
you know. But it takes maturity, man, because people will like run with stuff like that. You might say something that makes sense, and then you have one of them words in there, and then somebody might take that as an opportunity to misconstrue your whole shit and be like, "Oh, see, you fucked up," and just totally throw the conversation off because they don't even want to really have the original conversation at hand, like they're running from it. So they found a reason. Like when somebody is typing to you and they spell something wrong, or they talking to you, they say something wrong, and you're like, "Oh, that ain't even how you say it, nigga. That's not how you pronounce that or whatever." And it's like you having a whole nother conversation now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I was trying to say. Don't do that to me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But yeah, going back to good topic there. Going back to Black men's health, mental health. I think you guys brought up a good point about how we communicate on a regular basis, and believe it or not, and you guys might actually agree. Group think, not necessarily group think, but I think group work, where you have Black men within group formats that are able to discuss things and get sometimes immediate feedback. Um, I think that's critical, and I think it's also very important because it's almost like um, therapeutic a little bit. Just with the way we communicate at times, or sometimes we'll have a question or a discussion about something that may be specific to one of us, but maybe the rest of us can all experience. We've all experienced it. We've all been there. We understand not just the intangibilities of what it is, but also the effects it may have on you for going through whatever it is you could be going through. And having that group format is critical to your mental health, because now you get to see how other people handle whatever it is, whether it's a type of stress or anything. Being able to interact with multiple people at the same time, prefer multiple Black men at this point at the same time, being able to see how you guys handle things all at the same time is therapeutic, because now it's like, okay, it's not just me. It ain't just me going through this. It's not just me having this experience. Now I have other Black men from different locations that are also at different points and periods in their life with different experiences that have also experienced this. And so now I'm able to communicate with you guys about it. Such as, if I decided to have children. If I decided to have children, you two that I'm family have already had children. So you guys have already went through that whole fatherhood moment, having your first, that whole experience. You guys have already went through that. And that's something I've yet to go through. And if I do decide to have children, I'm definitely bringing that up. And I definitely want to know your stories, your experiences, and all that you had to go through, good times, the bad times, the emergencies, the near death things. I want to know all of it because, again, this would be something that's new to me, but it would be something that you guys already kind of have nice on your belt. You understand what I'm saying? I think that group format is helpful. It's critical to not just mental health, but also just growth, character growth.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
without
you're right
question,
about
I
that,
definitely
man.
understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, you're right on that. That kind of goes back to development as a child too. You think about it,
Yeah.
you're in a classroom with other kids, have different experiences, and that's part of how you learn too. You know, you might learn how to do the math equation the way that your neighbor is doing it next to you, which is different than how you was doing it, and it might help you out with your math game. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely having a support system, man. And as us being humans, right, primates, however we want to call us, apes, and then males of our species, and then Black males finally. You're supposed to have that with your friends. Your inner circle. You're supposed to find those kinds of connections where you can let your guard down to be able to pick up some things and learn and teach others as well. And just kind of trade skills and stuff like that. That's definitely a big part of it. And a lot of people, we like closet ourselves in, you know what I'm saying? We get depressed and we like, I don't want to we cut people off. That's famous out here now. You know what I'm saying? I'm cutting such and such off every year. I'm cutting them off, but are you getting any better? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to open yourself up to that, to gain some experience from other people. So you can learn from other people's mistakes too. You can see how people carry themselves and people that are in your lives and kind of just learn from their situation and see what you would do differently or, whatever, if you're observant enough, which you should be if you care enough about your own self-development. You know what I'm saying? You got to be out here participating in this life experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. One thing I want to discuss, and then we can also go over to Black men's mental health within the scope of sports. We have had an incident that recently happened, and we're going to definitely talk about it. But there's one thing I do want to bring up that I think is also critical to Black men's mental health. Me and Maurice were talking about it, and I've actually talked about it before with a few people, is the actual process of going through from boyhood to adulthood or manhood. In this society, this present society, I would say even the modern society, there isn't an initiatory stage for men. I won't even just say Black men, because if it doesn't exist for men, it won't exist for Black men. But there isn't an initiatory stage for men, period, across the board within this society. And I think that's something that we're going to struggle with until that's fixed, because it helps promote a quality type of individual. In older societies, there is an initiatory stage from boyhood to manhood or boyhood to adulthood that exists. And those young men, the young adults have to go through that stage, whether it's being out in the wild and surviving on their own, or having to kill a predator to show that you can protect the family or protect the clan. Those are things that are necessary to determine who has leadership skills, or who is a protector within that society, or who is going to be considered a valuable a good man. If he's a hunter, okay, he can provide for his family, that type of thing. We don't have that within this modern society because there actually isn't a necessity for it in order for us to operate. Um, and so, because of that, who we tend to follow after to determine the quality of man, whether you are a real man or not, or whether you are a man of higher class and stature, is the person who is considered uh, the top of the society, the cream of the crop, which would be our oppressor. We would be considered as white males. They would be considered within our society scope, not just any white male, but more so the type that has, based on the image that our society says, like he has the fancy car, the fancy clothes, a lot of money, the bachelor pad, that type of person. And that's considered a man within our society. Now, of course, within different demographics, even within our society, that varies. When you go to Black demographics, our society dictates a lot towards entertainment. And so, based on the entertainment industry, there is a type of man that fits within that society where we tend to gravitate to, especially when you consider music, how that influences a lot of us, especially at a younger age. Okay, if I'm going to be a man, I need to make sure I have X, Y, and Z like this person because they're glorified as being man. Even though it's not necessary for manhood, it's how the society dictates what manhood is. It's something that I think because of this lack of initiation exists. I think if you go to other ethnic groups, societies, their definition for what makes a person a man differs because their society has their own norms and values that exist within their own network. What do you guys think about this lack of initiation from boyhood to manhood or from child to adult that does not exist for men, period, let alone Black men? And do you think that we need to kind of create something to kind of fix this lack of a value system? Or should we be fine as we are? What do you guys thoughts?
Can you say that last part again for me one more time?
What part did you hear?
No, I just said, can you repeat the last part for me one more time?
Yeah, I'm saying, what do you guys think about us not having a initiatory system from boyhood to manhood? What do you guys think about us not having that? And is that something that you think we need, or do you think we're fine as we are without it?
You know, I think it I think it works for the cultures and societies that it works for. And I'm not opposed to it, but I think living in a Western society like we do, I I don't know if we could incorporate that into our particular lifestyles. Um, I would say this. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't know if initiatory system would, what I'm saying, would fit, but at the same time, there definitely needs to be some type of actions taken as far as helping transition, making that transition from boyhood to adulthood for sure. Um, and I think that's one of the things that we've lost in recent years. Especially with the whole gender thing and everything being flip flopped and everything that's been going on. So I do feel like that's kind of being lost. So there is a call for concern in that particular area.
Mhm.
And I mean, it needs to be fixed. The only thing is, I just don't know if that is the route we can take, or if we can incorporate that into what's already established. I mean, there is actions that need to be taken, but I'm not sure that's the one. That's my take on it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Curious, what do you think? He might be busy. Um, I do think that we do need to kind of visit that topic just because um, within our society, there is this clouded aspect of what qualifies as a good man. Not even just black, but just within our society in general. And with the decline of men in college, especially black men, with the decline of men in the workforce, especially black men, it's you know we're not meeting the standards of the society that dictates we're supposed to meet. We're not meeting the education, we're not meeting the finances. A lot of us are not meeting, uh, the goals of marriage or having children. And so, based on the society, we're not, as a collective, not necessarily doing the best when it comes to being men. Now, of course, society doesn't dictate, or it shouldn't dictate how you live, how you operate, and how you think, but it does influence people, and it also influences the opposite sex at times when you're looking for a mate, because a lot of times the opposite sex does not know what actually qualifies for them as a good man or a great man. And so until they get to the point where they know exactly what they want out of a relationship, they know exactly what they need from that connection, they're going to be relying upon the general society understanding of what qualifies a man to be a man. And I think that's something we kind of need to visit and dig a little deeper. We need to disambiguate exactly what makes a man, what qualifies a person to be a man. Is it age? Is it having certain things? Is it the mentality? Because I think that because it's not crystal clear within our modern understanding in this society, I think a lot of people are misled. And just because a person is a certain age, or just because a certain person is grown, while they may be classified as such, they may not function as such, or they may not be needed to be valued as such. Within those older societies, if you did not make it through, living in the wild or killing a predator or being a hunter, you were not valued within that society. You had to be a man that was able to make it through those harsh times, those harsh conditions, look death in the face and bark back at it, and really take on the toughest of the toughest of things in order to be considered, okay, this person is considered the top of the top. You know, they're able to protect, their family, their clan. They're able to provide for them, and this is the person that the quote unquote bachelor that should be married. This is the person that exudes masculinity. This is the person that would be considered a man within that society. He's ready for manhood, and I just don't think that exists. And so I think because those lines are clouded, um, a lot of times you see even in children where a lot of times, we tell children, hey, you can't do X, Y, and Z until you're 18. You can't do X, Y, and Z until you're 21. And then they reach that age and they get this mentality of, okay, you can't tell me nothing because now I'm a man, now I'm an adult. Now I can do what I want to do. And it's really like messed up because their understanding of what manhood is only based on what society says. and not necessarily the value system of what, we as a people value or what your family values. I just wanted to bring that up. Any comments on that? Any last comments on that?
Yeah, I've been listening. I feel what you're saying. I think that in a lot of classical societies, they had worked their system to such a way where I want to say it was simple without saying it was simple, but you had X number of factors and it was generationally the same each time. So what I mean to say is these rites of passage and the test manhood and things that you go through were similar for like the whole village, let's say, or the whole tribe or whatever, versus when you have a conglomerate, a big corporate country, you know what I'm saying, that's multicultural, that is what's the word I'm looking for? Metropolitan, you know what I'm saying? Real big and spread out, and then has access to all these things that people did in the past and that people do now and that people envision for the future. So now you got all these options of how you can live your life and still be a credible, dignified, man, and learn life lessons, through whatever path you go through and all of this stuff. But because there's so much choice out there now, these women, right, who are thinking about this man, they have to take that into consideration. What kind of man do I want to consider a good man, or what kinds, right? I might have a few different options that I could say is a good man, is different kind of men, right? She got to think about that. And then when she's dealing with somebody, she has to say, okay, does this dude fit into any of the potential modalities, of men that I like, that I think are good men, regardless of if that's actually a good man or if society thinks that's a good man, so on and so forth.
Right.
Because it might not ever all the way line up where society,
it may not.
Church, everybody agrees this is a good man. So yeah, you make the right choice. And then they might do that. And you make that choice, and then he's a piece of shit anyway. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
But we have so much choice. So what I mean to say is we're a victim of having so much overload of choice, you know what I'm saying? Different directions that you could go, and then the built-in biases that people have in ignorance just amplifies that, you know what I'm saying? Because then it's like, now the people that consult you, they're going to show their ignorance and how they advise you about don't talk to that man, or this man is good, and they advice might be shit, you know what I'm saying?
Good point. Good point.
So it's very hard, but at the end of the day, you do have to decide for yourself, So for you ladies that might be listening, it's on you to, in reality, decide what you think is a good man. And then you have the experience, and then you think about it, think on it. And then you say, okay, is this what I really want? You go through all of that. And then if it is, then great. You've done your job, right? You procured a good score, you know what I'm saying? But if not, then you have to admit that to yourself and then say, okay, I got to go ahead and continue my search, or whatever, you work on me, or whatever it is that you have to do, rather than stay in something that's not it, or try to change them, or, something like that, and force it.
Gotcha. Well put. So bringing back to mental health and sports, because I want to touch on sports. We've heard about the situation with Damar Hamlin, I believe that's his name. Buffalo Bills football player Damar Hamlin, safety for the Bills, and we talked about it briefly before the show started. But for those who are not aware, is in the middle of the game, and he basically tackled somebody. In the process of tackling them, he collapsed, and he went immediately into cardiac arrest. And for the most part, he was considered dead for about 9 minutes. CPR was performed, and he was able to for about 10 minutes. They performed CPR. I mean, he was able to revive his heartbeat, and then they rushed him to the hospital. Fortunately, he's off of it. Currently, he's good. He's breathing on his own. He's off of his ventilator. He's speaking to teammates, doctors, and family. His first words were, "Did we win?" Things like that. I think we have to look at this particular incident. I know it's a one-time isolated incident, but unfortunately, I think it happens a lot more, especially in football. Because something I've learned when I used to play is each year the players are bigger, stronger, and faster. And I remember when I had my short time of playing, we were good, but then the next year they brought in some kids from Virginia Beach, and they were big as hell, strong as hell, and even though they were over 300, they were fast. And it shocked me. It's like, whoa, where these kids come from? And you start realizing, okay, each year, if you follow the trend, okay, they find the fastest person from the previous year, and they find him and say, okay, is there a kid who's faster than him? Is there a kid who's stronger than the strongest person from the previous year? Is there a kid who's bigger than the biggest person from the previous year? And the answer is always yes, because you're talking about the entire country. You're talking about scouts that scout the entire country, high schools across the country, colleges across the country. And yes, they will find them. And even with a sport like the NFL, they don't just find players, from colleges in the country. They also find players from colleges across the world. So yes, there's going to be somebody who's bigger, faster, stronger than the person from last year. And so what you have on this field is a combination of people who are going to lead to a higher risk of contact, higher risks, increased risks from contact. Damar is not a big person at all. He's actually very, very skinny because of his size. I think he's under 200 pounds. But the type of contact he was received, even though he was the one tackling, the person he brought down was not light by any means. So that's something we have to understand with the sport is it can be very brutal to some degree, but we need to start talking about more protection of players' mental health, more protection of their brains from moving forward and backwards or side to side. And this exists not only in football players, where they suffer from degenerative diseases like CTE. Also in soccer, players that hit their head on with the soccer ball, or for those across the pond, it's football. That type of contact is not healthy, and there's nothing preventing that type of contact from happening. And so, as players continue to do this, and their brain continues to shift inside of their skull, they may develop a degenerative disease like CTE, which may cause them to completely lose it. And the brain ends up sometimes eating itself. CTE is a known issue, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a known issue. It's been happening for quite some time. Players that constantly get hit in the head suffer from this. Even in boxing, we see this. So that's something that we have to start looking at that may need to be helped improving. And we know most of the players in these sports, especially American sports, the top ones like basketball and football are going to be Black men. They're going to be Black players, and Black players that are suffering from game-related or play-related cognitive deficits, and so we know what history teaches us. History teaches us within the medical field that blacks have lower mental capacities to begin with. We know that that's alive, and we know that that's something that's been taught to us, and so therefore, no one's looking under the microscope to see exactly what's going on with all these hits and all these incidents. And now that Damar Hamlin's happened, now the conversation is being had. You know, fortunately, he was able to receive CPR from a trained person. If they did not have a person who was properly trained giving CPR, that whole situation could have been left. They're going to start making that mandatory. But also, we have to also start caring about the mental health and the brain health of some of these players. We need to start actually discussing these things and finding ways to make these sports safer. What are you guys' thoughts about this whole thing regarding Damar Hamlin and just the safety?
Well, I'll say this before we kind of, wrap everything up.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of held off on my opinion earlier, because I wanted to get this all out. It's such a touchy subject on the strength of, we all love our sports. Most of us are participants in these types of sports. And what I don't want to do is minimize brain injuries, especially in very physical contact sports. We know these things exist. Just like, honestly, any other type of injuries, depending on what type of sport you play. Each particular sport, no matter how physical it is, has its handful of potential or serious injuries that plague that particular sport. It's just such a touchy thing, because that was a freak accident. It was a freak situation. So, and to be honest, even with the helmet technology they're doing now, I just don't really see any way you can really make the sport any safer without making it less physical, which also translates into less entertaining. So it's just one of those things where it's like, man, it's just very, very wild situation, and I'm happy that brother made it through that situation. Yeah, it's just a wild thing as a whole.
Yeah, it's definitely, first off, it's unfortunate, and our prayers go out to the families and everything like that. And we glad to hear the reports that, he responsive and all of that. But I think, like you said, like you alluded to, man, it's a foregone conclusion that playing sports, you're gonna have these brain injuries. You got the other injuries too, right? Leading up to the brain at the top. So what I think needs to happen is, and the athletes always knew this. Like when we were kids playing, I'm sure we heard conversations or seen the older kids that, was playing in high school. They would talk about this kind of stuff. But the thing is, the leagues have to act like everybody knows what's going on, instead of acting like, oh, well, this is just some, it's an issue that only comes up every once in a while, and it's, freak accident, and we're going to distance ourselves from the player and try not to pay the medical bills and so on and so forth. I think that when you sign that NFL contract, or, whatever league or organization it might be, that it needs to be built into their insurance as an organization, that they're gonna take care of the Alzheimer's and the dementia and the motor skills deteriorating, all the things that happen behind the actions of this sport. Now, but at the same time, we want the entertainment. We're gonna lay it out there. We want the entertainment, so we want you to still play, and that's what the leagues are gonna say too. Is we want you to still play, but they should at least acknowledge that, yeah, you're gonna get hurt. You know what I'm saying? It's a foregone conclusion. So we gonna put an account to the side, because you got to understand how much money these companies and these franchise owners and these networks and all the people that are in on this sports thing, these schools and all of this, they make a lot of money. So they can, in theory, if it's as little amount of incidences as they say, as they like to report, they should have no problem paying full ride, medical, full ride,
Right.
medical.
Right.
Then
Hey,
we can
real
be less
quick, Chris,
mad
before you
at
finish your
the
thought, I
powers
didn't want
that
to cut you
be,
off.
you know what I'm saying, about this whole thing. But right now, they still look, like scum because it's 2022. And, when we were kids, going back to the 80s and 90s and stuff, we even had movies. You remember that movie, The Program? Was talking about the athletes, they stretching their bodies out, they taking drugs, you know what I'm saying? They falling out, collapsing.
Right.
We had the Hank Gather story, you know what I'm saying? Like, this happens to athletes on the regular. They falling out, they're passing out because, for one, like you said, they're like based on genetics or whatever it is, right? And whatever system that they were born into, they're like these genetic freaks, right? They might have some kind of even disorder that makes them extra large, right? And they use that to their advantage, right? And still play, even though when you have those kind of conditions like thyroid and stuff like that, or, your human growth hormone is off or whatever, that those are medical issues that suggest that you probably shouldn't partake, but they still do anyway. But nevertheless,
Right.
because we know that these are the kind of people that are exerting themselves, right? And so that means that a small hit like the one that he got a few days ago, it can be the hit that does it to you. It doesn't even have to be a hit. It could just be a long, hard sprint, and then you fall out and pass out. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be he was on any drugs or anything. No sports medicine or nothing. It just naturally. He's overtrained. If you talk to the sports people, they'll tell you like, oh yeah, that guy, he's overtrained. He's been working hard. You know what I'm saying? And that's what comes with this sport. You know what I mean? So we just have to acknowledge that, man, and know that these men are risking themselves literally for our entertainment. And it is life and death, even though most games you don't hear about anybody dying or whatever, but it does happen. And it happens in practice, and it happens when they go home and they're just chilling, and they pass out, but they had a game like last week or last month or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real issue. It's definitely a real issue, man. I remember back in the day, the big kids that maybe were taking, some kind of performance enhancer or whatever, coming to play, like smaller kids, like our school. I used to play for LA County Sheriff's League, right? We had regular sized kids, like I'm 5'7" right now. So, I was a short kid, trying to be a shooting guard, and a point guard or whatever. We go and play these kids in Costa Mesa, right? They from Orange County. They're like a rich school. These MFers had like 6 foot tall people. We in like 8th grade, 6th grade, something like that. And these dudes is like 6 foot. Yeah, they got the mustache, like the kid that made the headlines with the mustache. Like those kids exist. Those kids exist, man. And they definitely are doing a number on their bodies, man. So we got to respect that, and not just us, but the leagues and organizations, because there's scientists out there that have techniques. There's technology, like he was saying earlier. You're not going to fully cure concussions or sprains or any of the things. You're not going to be perfect. You can do the best you can and just acknowledge people are going to get hurt, but then also give them a full ride so that there's not a lot of pressure, on the people that basically made it happen for you, that lined your pockets. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You got to go ahead and look out for them. That would be my solution right there in the world we live in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Maurice, you gonna say something? I think Maurice is gonna say something. He might have stepped away a bit. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Trez. I think that's what that's being discussed now is the contract for Damar Hamlin. They don't know if this situation would have been covered. I think that's something that you remember Junior Seau from the Chargers back in the day. He suffered from CTE, and by that time he had already retired. And so the NFL was no longer paying him. And even though he was suffering from, those mental issues,
long-term effects,
him and his wife had to deal with that, and they dealt with that in a pocket. So,
Yep.
which is what got them to sue the NFL for CTE, which
Yep.
started this whole campaign. And so,
Yeah. That was
uh,
when it really first started, in the modern era. You're right. Yep.
no. What's going on, Menez Meach? What's going on, man? Something I will want to say, I have noticed, and maybe you guys will if you watch the games a lot, more. You see players with these like bands, these colored bands that don't, they're not complete circles, but they're like bands around their necks. It's like this plastic band that goes around their neck. I'm starting to see it. I saw one of the Cowboy players wearing it the other day. And what this band is supposed to do is keep the skull from, keep the brain and the stem from moving when they have contact. So it's like
Whiplash. You preventing whiplash, basically.
preventing whiplash during the game. And so they can
Yeah.
move their heads, but their neck stays still. And it's supposed to help prevent any of those potential injuries where their head moves back, where their brain inside the skull moves back and forth. And that's what I'm saying. We can have technology to actually help with this. It's not like you give up and stop the contact sport and make it change the game. No, you utilize technology to find ways to help. I do think that there's much more technology they can put in those helmets. I don't think it's enough even now, and I think that that's something that they need to look at. Even though the designs of helmets have changed, I think we need to look at what goes on inside the helmets and determine,
Definitely.
is there really enough protection?
I mean, other sports, if you look at car racing and stuff like that, like they have, some of those, they probably have something similar to that, and other things that kind of stabilize your head because they know about that whiplash, just even if you don't have an accident, just driving around in the car, bouncing around, for 200 laps, right? That's just like getting jabbed over the course of a whole boxing match. It might even just be soft shots, but you're just getting jabbed and your neck is going back, 100 times over the course of this hour in this fight. Like those things matter. So yeah, football, they're right along in that same category. They need to have that. You know what I'm saying? They need to have that protection. So I'm not mad at any kind of protection that you put in there, but no, you can't cancel sports pretty much. Like that's you sign the waiver, when you sign up, the waiver says you can get hurt. So that's that, but there has to be compassion and it has to be a monetary, relief. It has to be straight over the table. You feel me?
Yeah,
that would make people feel better, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely would make parents and wives feel better. So yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Kids. What up, Meech? Menez, what up?
Hey, what's going on, Maurice? You there with us, man? We're about to close out. I didn't realize you've been going for the 2 hours.
I'm here, man. I just want to say real quick, man, before I bounce somebody because I do gotta go. Hey, man, I appreciate the conversation. I think we definitely had a productive and fruitful conversation, and I hope this really reaches a lot of people. So we're gonna make sure we promote this show, man. And, a lot of things we covered, I think it helped a lot of people, and I think we can get a lot of clarity and understanding on it. So yeah, I look forward to the conversation behind what we were talking about, and I appreciate everybody that listened, and I appreciate everybody that subscribes. And also the people who were in the chat that joined the conversation and gave their own opinions and talked about the situation themselves. So, yep, I just want to give my appreciation to everybody, man. Thank you. Appreciate you, Melvin, for showing up for sure. And then Brother Triz, thank you for popping in. And, Team O, I'm out.
Yes, sir.
Right,
likewise.
Triz, you got any last words before we shut it down?
No, that's about it, man. Team Osiris signing off. You know how we do, man. Subscribe, click the link, all of that fancy new stuff, get the notification, all of that. You feel me?
Right.
Until next time.
Yeah. Likewise. Again, this is this episode on the Black Men's Mental Health. I'm sure we'll have more episodes in the future. But yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks everybody for hitting the like button and subscribing. Looking forward to next time. We'll try to do something next weekend. see if we can get another show started. If you guys have any comments, any ideas, any show ideas, leave it in the comments or leave it in the chat, and we'll definitely take it into consideration and make sure we get it, to all of you guys. So make sure you guys stay tuned, stay subscribed, and we'll be back at it. Team Osiris, we out. Peace.